Fighting hard, family torn apart. Whispers tearing lives, hearts raw scarred. Judges grinning, deals in shadows locked. Case workers speaking truth they've mocked. Gunning on for justice, rage intense. Bringing kids home from this broken fence. Corruption weighs heavy, loss collapse. Kids go missing behind their maps. CPS stealing kids, no trace. Lies build walls, the truth they erase. Gunners howl, cuts through the air. He won't stop midnight, he'll get there. Dark hallways where the guilty play. Secrets hiding, hope fades away. A man with fire, voice like a storm. Breaking chains, reform, transform. Gunning on for justice, rage intense. Bringing kids home from this broken fence. Corruption weighs heavy, loss collapse. Kids go missing behind their maps. Family shattered, cries dulled by fights. CPS takes them in the dead of night. But Gunner speaks of brighter days, cut through the lies. Light ablaze! Family shattered, cries dulled by fights. CPS takes them in the dead of night. But Gunner speaks of brighter days, cut through the lies. Light ablaze. Behind their maps.
Hey look, this for every mama got her baby snatched on some bogus shit. For every pops they locked out the crib like he ain't blood. CPS, y'all been eating off pain for too long. We know what you on, but now it's war, this gunning foe. CPS. Kick doors, no warrants, they taking our seeds. Say it's neglect, but they planting they greed. Feds in they pocket, judge got a fee. Run it like a business, adoption spree. Contracts overseas, got partners in France. But shorty from Shy, he ain't get a chance. Mama work 2 jobs, daddy do right, but they still snatch his baby in the middle of the night. Fuck CPS, they ain't saving shit. Just a system full of snakes getting rich off kids. We see through the cap, we done taken the hit. Now it's Suffer Davis popping and we loaded the clip. Gunna got the case, now we in that fight. taking this to SCOTUS, shining that light. They ruined good homes, now we flipping that script. Time to bring them back, time to empty the clip. They labeled us monsters, called us unfit, but it's they paperwork dirty, all of it forged and flipped. How the fuck they selling babies to a bidder overseas? Then tell the fam you unworthy. Man, please, we got mamas in pain, daddies in tears. They breaking our hearts, been doing it for years. Now we riding with Gunner, and we got the proof, sworn under oath. Now it's time for truth. Trump got the team and the pen in his hand. He said bring them home, now that's the plan. You feds been hiding, but it's over now. We moving like an army, and we ain't bowing down. Fuck CPS, they ain't saving shit. Just a system full of snakes getting rich off kids. We see through the cap, we done taken the hit. Now it's affidavits popping and we loaded the clip. Gunna got the case, now we in that fight. Taking this to SCOTUS, shining that light. They ruined good homes, now we flipping that script. Time to bring them back, time to empty the clip. They ain't gods, they ain't law, they just people, corrupt people. And when the people rise, ain't no system safe. The Chi-Town, it's the movement. We gunning for CPS, and we coming heavy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait.
Good evening and happy 4th of July weekend. This is Gunner with Gunning for CPS, and our special guest this evening is going to be Sharon Evers. We're going to go ahead and bring her in right now just to kick things off. Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome.
Hi.
So a couple things that have just been released, I guess, that we need to cover. You know, we tried to do in the beginning of the show, give a few updates to everybody, but I think the biggest thing that has hit the news this past week is RFK's report on the Hep B vaccination, showing that a 1,115% guaranteed chance of getting autism for children. This is the thing that I think, if you guys follow me on Facebook and everything else, we're talking about our freedoms, that this information was buried by the CDC. But I don't think people have really caught the impact of this, of what this means for people that deal with CPS. Because if your child was taken from you, then required to go to a doctor and caught up with all these immunizations and shots, and they received the Hep B vaccination, that's actually a huge lawsuit now, not just against the manufacturer of these drugs, which is what everybody was saying that the big pharma was actually scared of. But now that is now liable. The state and CPS is now liable for forcing those immunizations on children without parental consent.
Well, I think Hep B is one of the lineup for like infants or young children as you go through the different. I'm pretty sure it's on the schedule.
Well, now a lot of people have asked, they says, well, how do I get this? Well, let me tell you, if you have a federal case, you may not have that, but you can request under, once your case gets to a federal level. And if you guys have been following a lot of people, I know Amy Henry, and there's a couple others that are out there on TikTok and a few others that have been following the case, and going through their own case and filing some of the others that have been assisting people with filing in federal court. And we're seeing these federal cases being accepted daily, that I'm getting notifications from. Hey, I just got through filing. Hey, I just got through. Hey, I got a thumbs up. It's been accepted. So this is real. And I guess the thing that we have to make sure that people understand is that's the importance of tying your case, your personal case, to our case, and you use your affidavit and the letter that we give you once you file your affidavit with us, Sharon and I, that we send you out this letter, that you use that as one of your exhibits, showing to your local courts that you're part of a larger case, showing that this is all connected. So now they are aware, the courts are now communicating with each other, state to state or federally across the United States, saying we have a major issue. And then once those are entered in, and people say, well, what good's it going to do with these affidavits? Maybe you guys have not been paying attention, but Pam Bondi will be one of our first people that will be called to the stand, and we have a legitimate reason to hold the director of Department of Justice of why they have not done nothing, let alone what they have done, and put it on the federal record for CPS and the things that have been reported to the FBI, so on and so forth, and basically put it on the federal record that it is on a federal case record that helps you guys as well as us. I don't think a lot of people get that, and those affidavits then will be turned over to the Department of Justice in a part of a full-on, full-fledged investigation that they're going to have no choice.
I think one of the things that people keep missing, and I've had to have this conversation with several people now, is the state does not have jurisdiction over constitutional issues.
No,
and
no jurisdiction.
People keep trying to go to their state court and talk about constitutional issues, but it's not getting anybody anywhere.
No.
Because that's not where the jurisdiction lies. No. So you guys need to pay attention.
Well, and the other thing I think that let's educate people as we go along. You'll also fill out with your federal filing. I mean, like what we did was a TRO, or a temporary restraining order. Then they have like 7 to 14 days that you actually have a specialized hearing on whether or not that restraining order will stay in place. And it's an emergency hearing that will stay in place throughout the duration, or will even continue. And you can ask at the final part of your judgment that same thing is put into place. Now, understanding when you're going with us, we're going to take and make sure that we have all that information, the best we can with everybody that's, that we've received stuff from. I moved from one folder to another, but we'll send out other things once we find out and let you know if you have these letters of what you have to carry around some of this ruling, because part of this ruling is you're against all 50 states, which means what? It means that, it means that no state would ever have jurisdiction over you, because it would be considered retaliation because you were part of a case against all 50 states, thus making you technically a legitimate federalized citizen, because no state has jurisdiction, and the only court that would have jurisdiction over you would be something in federal court.
Right.
So it removes the teeth.
The state isn't going to deal with something that's directly against them.
Yeah. And understand, you do not need, and listen, one thing you have to understand, and I've had people that said they have been given misinformation from a federal court clerk. You do not need the state's permission or a letter releasing to you to change, if you have an open case, to change jurisdictions, because you're dealing with constitutional issues. You have to make sure you articulate that properly, because like what she was saying earlier, states don't have the right to adjudicate anything to do with constitutional rights. They don't have the authority. That is a huge thing. And also remember too, like I said, that you're quoting in some of the things too, and there's a lot of, like our case is in through, but it will be amended. Like I said, you can have, somebody asked me today, so well, I've already amended it twice. I don't think I could do it a third time. You can amend this thing as much as you want. There's no cap on it, because even after you send out subpoenas for information or evidence you need, and you realize within that evidence other people are involved, then yes, you can amend your filing. That's not a problem. And guys, I want to thank everybody for joining us this week. Chantel, James, good to see you again. Alicia, Pause, Kara, a lot of you guys, Barbara Ann, awesome to see you. Now, if you guys don't know Barbara Ann's story, man, you ought to go check that out, because here's the other thing. Barbara Ann, I'm not going to confirm or deny, there's a good, highly likely possibility that she's going to be a witness. And if you don't know her story connects with the state of Tennessee also, because of what was done. Yeah, if you've ever, and understand you guys don't know who Barbara Ann has actually gone and testified before congressional and Senate committees on human trafficking. Awesome. Like, she's on the record. So that's a huge thing. And they're scared when oh my gosh, she's going to come in. They fear her. and her story, especially when it connects their state or them how to do this stuff. So you have understand our circle. We've got a lot of people, either they're in the public, they're in the pub, but they're already on the record. I mean, their statements are always, I mean, they're on the record. So when we talk about bringing reputable people to a federal courtroom to testify, they're already substantiated.
Yeah. We're not
with a
playing
lot of
around, people. We're just not. This is too.
No, we're done.
Too important.
There's several others out there, and understand Barbara Ann wasn't the only one. There's a whole bunch of girls that were there that if you go to look into that, now I know some of the modern day lawsuits is like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or the LD something, LDC or something, is a more recent one. The Mormons, they've renamed it. That's a rebranding thing, but it's still the same creature. You'll know that's about CPS and a few others that have done that have got caught, shut down their business, and then reopened it and redistributed their people and opened up another company. It's all under an umbrella corporation. But yeah, we even have the evidence of child trafficking and international child trafficking with business names within our research and everything else, that everything has been confirmed. So it goes deep. But Barbara was part of a similar situation within a religious institution that dealt with Texas, and it was bad. I mean, it was like, and I know you know about this because you're from Northern California, and you're familiar with some of those things with ultra purity culture. This was to an extreme. Huh?
You live in the Bible Belt. It's everywhere. You know this.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you had
pocket
mega extra. Okay. I guess we've got a few questions. We'll address these and then we'll get into the meat of our show here. We've got a few questions. Let me go back here. We had one question, and I'll get through this, guys. And please understand, we move a little fast. That's why you guys can always go back after a certain amount of time. YouTube will publish the show on my channel. And I believe on Sharon's channel now, because I was able to connect the two. And her show is Beauty and Ashes, and it's on YouTube as well. But this is the only platform we're able to get out on due to the fact that TikTok literally has permanently banned me. And once all this stuff goes through, I will be suing TikTok for freedom of speech violation.
I try to keep updated on TikTok because Facebook left me on Facebook. So we kind of
she's banned from Facebook. I'm banned from TikTok. So there you go. I mean, but we covered the bases the best we can. So we've had a couple questions. Pause. It says file in federal, not civil family court, right? Yes. When you're dealing with constitutional rights issue, a state does not have that. If you have an open case and you have constitutional questions, this is not legal advice. This is for educational purposes only. But the format that says it's open, that court has jurisdiction. And every book that we've pointed you to and everything else on how to file in federal court, these are publications and they are by lawyers. And they're going to tell you if you have a constitutional right issue, you have to be in the right court and to address it, which is what these state courts fear. Because if they realize everybody that's starting to file in federal courts, that's the point. Lock them up. And when you file in federal court, the federal court, you will give notification to the state court, hey, I'm filing a federal case against all of you. You have to freeze. And the federal court will then send down a letter from the federal court, once it's accepted, down to the lower court. Now, a lot of people say, well, I don't have money, I don't have this. There are forms you can fill out called indigent forms that actually cover those, and it does take a little bit longer of a process, but yes, you can pay for them. The biggest cost that upon our research that is found is serving everybody that's on the other side. And those are done by the U.S. Marshals, is what we were informed by the clerk. Hey, that's all taken care of by the U.S. Marshals. Don't worry about it. That deals with that. So yeah, it gets a lot of teeth real quick when the U.S. Marshals show up and they go, oh, somebody's in trouble. I think we had that issue too with, I think it was FBI or TBI or something, but came in during one of the hearings that we had that was illegal as hell.
That was fun.
And yeah, so, and a lot of, and here, understand this, if you guys are talking to attorneys, and I've heard this one too, attorneys that are on the state bar, okay, and they have a state license, family attorneys, this and that, they are not legally able to give you advice on federal cases or federal filings because they don't have the license. They can get in trouble, actually, those family attorneys, for practicing law without a license. Not a state license, a federal license.
That's why y'all can't get help from your attorneys.
That's why you're getting jacked up and they keep you in the state court trying to drain your money and everything else because they don't have the federal license to take it up a notch like it's supposed to be done. Now, is that considered ineffective counsels? I've had people turn around and ask that. That's your decision and for the courts to decide. Can you file on that ineffective counsel and get back all your money from your family attorney for roping you through this, even though you've told them I've had constitutional rights violations? I'm going to kind of lean to something don't smell right or something's rotten in the state of Denmark. Yes, I went there.
They may not be able to give it to us as far as a federal case, but you'd think they'd at least be able to point you in the right direction, right?
Yeah, and that should be part of their oath, really, because their oath says, I'm supposed to stand up for the Constitution. Now, a lot of people didn't understand also within a lot of these things, too. The big thing is, too, is that the courts are making money. The state courts are making money on this. And they said, what are you talking about? I'm going to inform you what we're talking about. What we're talking about, we've discussed this on another show, but they actually take out a couple different bonds. In other words, like a bond you get at a bank. They have a bid bond, okay? A performance bond, a payment bond, an affidavit of individual surety bond, and a reinsurance. In other words, they're insuring that. The courts make money off this, so how can you adjudicate something when you're making a financial profit based off of the decisions that are there? This is the corruption we're talking about in the court systems. As well as, you thought it was just, a lot of people said, well, you know, my state does or my state doesn't, to where, you know, if you get child support put on there, that the judges and everybody else, that goes into their retirement funds. Now, Tennessee is one of those states that, yes, if you collect child support, that goes into a slush fund under that. And part of the administrative fees, those judges and magistrates, that's how they get paid. They benefit from their rulings. That is a conflict of interest. Now, huge. Now, pay attention, get your pen and paper out and everything else, because I'm going to give you those real quick on what to file. You can file these in combination with your case number to your county clerk under a Freedom of Information Act form, and it connected with your case. So you're going to make the thing that would end up happening if you, or you can do this under federal subpoena. We're going to do ours under federal subpoena because then they can't deny it or jack it up. Number one, pen and paper, SF-24. That is your bid bond. Okay. Second one, SF-25. That is the performance bond. SF-25A, that's the payment bond. Shows all the payments and everything else. And you can request a whole financial breakdown of your case of who got paid and who didn't and where all the money went. You have a right to do that. Let's continue on. We got two more. SF-28, an affidavit of individual surety, a surety bond. Okay, that's the affidavit we're talking about. The next two, the last two, SF-274 and SF-275. That is the reinsurance agreements. Okay, and I will give a lot of credit. Once again, this is a lot of our people, like I said, we work at it, but that is a huge shout out to Malibu Dallas and his bond, The Bond Game. That is all printed in there. If you guys know Malibu Dallas, go buy that book. It will walk you through a lot of those things. Yes, actually, yeah, Barbara Ann, that's how she got her birth certificate finally. You realize she was born and there was no birth certificate. Yeah, I mean, she was under the system. You realize the babies that they had too, no paperwork. The same thing that happened in Tennessee at the sanitariums. Yeah, I got the information on that too, when they were raping all the people with autism and Down syndrome and all that other stuff, and then taking the babies. This has been recorded internationally. So this is a real thing. And even your own state has its own sanitarium. But Tennessee was well known for that, as well as Georgia. Georgia Tan, if you don't know who Georgia Tan is, go look her up out of Memphis. She was a white woman stealing black babies and putting them at basically on the black market to be adopted. Wow. And everybody thinks this is all good. This is something, this is treason, people. Treason and sedition to steal children and traffic children. And it's been going on for a long, long time. And guess who else is in on this? And this is going to shock you. How many of y'all go to church? Did you know every major religious organization, the Catholic Church, the Baptists, the Lutherans, the Church of God, all those other ones, all run a home somewhere, a home, a boys and girls home in some state or another. It doesn't take long to look into it. Look into your religious organization's leadership and what those, well, we're here to protect and do this to the children. Where do you think all the abuse is coming from those homes? Church organizations.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. What does that mean? Who knows? It could be staff. It could be parishioners. It could be pastors. It could be, hey, let's go have a weekend and we're going to go work up here with the children all the time while they're up there for 3 or 4 days raping kids. Oh, wait, that doesn't happen. Really? You know how many witnesses and people that have been on the record of doing this? Why aren't they in homes? Why aren't they with a family member? Why aren't they staying in their community? Because they want to do this, because this means a job and a paycheck. That's called child trafficking, ladies and gentlemen. All of it. Barbara Ann says every child trafficking ring is connected to a home. Even the religious ones? The religious ones are the worst ones upon investigation.
It's terrible.
And that means what? Your religious organization, the head of your organization, your diocese or your religious institution, and even some of them to get with it are connected to colleges. That means they're getting all this money from the federal government to traffic children and making a profit off of it while you sit in there, oh God, forgive me of my sins and everything else, while the money you put in that plate is going, and yeah, 501c, that's right, tax-free to rape children.
501cs, yep. Listen, I'm all for freedom of religion, but if your religion is hurting somebody, I think we need to have some boundaries put in place.
Boundaries, nothing. This is exactly why I'm going to deal with something on a religious level just real quick. And Sharon and I talked about this. Religious organizations are unbiblical.
It's true.
Why? Because it said specifically, now you no longer don't have a teacher. You don't have an intercessor. The relationship has been repaired, if you believe that way, between you and the Creator. Therefore, I don't need anybody interfering. I have a direct line. Therefore, call no man teacher. Wait a minute. Why don't they teach about this? They go over it, but they're going to go over what do they talk about? They focus 90% of their things, and Sharon and I talked, and I know we're going down a religious trail, but it makes sense. And it's this of follow no man. Don't go after this. Don't go after it. Repair that relationship, but to turn around and say, now what are you going to do? Because if there's nothing there, there's no reason forsake not assembling yourselves. Assemble yourselves at a barbecue at your house and how you go to work and the people you associate with. That's what it's talking about. You've been lied to. You don't believe me? You haven't been lied to? Well, everybody, I love this one. And you and I have talked about this, so I think it's fun. Well, the King James. Do you realize the amount of garbage that was done with the King James and the political stuff that was tied to it? Go do the history search. I'm not lying to you. Look at it. Do you know what the oldest Bible out there that's actually there is the Ethiopian Bible? But how many people say we're going to send people to Ethiopia and convert them into Christians? I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Right.
Isn't that funny? We're going to send this and this and that. Guys, it's not a joke. It's all, and you don't believe you've been lied to and conditioned to. Right there, you've got the Hep B vax. You've got all the other things with our JFK being shot. You got all these things coming to truth. Listen, the onion is being peeled before your eyes, and there's a lot of truths you're gonna have to face. But even somebody else, I think, did a video. It showed up on Reels. I don't know if it was on TikTok or not, but this guy come down and says, well, we need to gather our resources and feed the poor and feed the hungry. And he goes, how did we take and transfer that verse into, we need a $2 million new sanctuary? Misappropriation of funds. Do I think churches ought to be audited? Yeah. And I've been in those, oh, well, he's just burnt. No, I'm not stupid. Because I saw the amount of manipulation and control it did to people, to where people that would give everything they had into a religious organization. And when it came time for when they were in need, you know what they were told? Go ahead, tell them, baby. What were they told? It's a famous one that you love to hear. Come on, your mama says it all the time. You just need to.
Oh, yeah. You just need to take it to God. I don't know.
Need to pray about it.
Like, because I experienced that, and like at the time I didn't know because I was very solidly in these communities. But I look back and I go, you know, they pushed those offerings and the deacon fund and everything else. The church is having a remodel. They just bought 2 more acres to build whatever. But when a widow comes to them, me, and asks for a little bit of help because I have 3 children and I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm trying to sort out my finances, and all they can give me is pittance.
Yeah.
That's all I get for help. Well, and a few meals.
False.
I mean, there were a few
false religion.
But it's just like, you can put so much money into this and this and this because you're doing good in your community, but when somebody really comes to you in pure need, that's all you can offer.
and listen, as a former business owner too, I was part of some of those things, you know, trying to put those things in there. That was the first thing too that I noticed. I'm like, well, what about Sister So-and-so that we've given monies and funds and this and that? And then when you took and turned around, and I'm not kidding you, I cut off all the tithes and offerings and everything. And I says, you know what? I'm going to decide where my money goes, because you're not helping the people you're supposed to be helping. And when I did you know, I had elders and other people of the church turn around acting like I owed them a bill. You know, you haven't put in your offerings and tithes in about, you know, 2 or 3 weeks. Boom, they were at the, what's going on, brother so-and-so? Are we having issues with our finances and this is that? Number one, that's none of your damn business. None. Second off, no, I'm seeing misappropriation of funds, and instead of sitting here and bringing your petitions, I shouldn't have to. You should have enough common sense. You know what I've been doing with it? Giving to the people you rejected. Going to buy the groceries for the mom, for the kids. I'm out of formula and this and that. I was that guy. I'll go buy it myself. What do you need? Here's some groceries to get you through.
And I did have a few people, like, don't get me wrong, not everybody in those circles are like that. Like, I mean, you really do have people who really do care, stand up and help or whatever, but they're few and far between sometimes. And I'm with Michael. I'll pray for you. Like,
yeah, I was just gonna say something about that. I love that joke. I'm like, what does that got to do with anything? Where's the hands and feet? Where's the I sit at your table?
Cop out. I'm just gonna say it gets used as a cop out.
I'm just, yeah.
I mean,
how many times do people, even in the original text, and listen, guys, I understand the original text. I can read and write all the other stuff through that stuff. I'm a little rusty on stuff. I'm out of practice, but yeah, I can get through it to where it talks about bringing them into your home, inviting them in, sharing a meal, breaking bread together, doing what you can, talking about community. That means everyday lives of people getting involved.
Yeah, that actually was really funny, because now that you say that, I had people bring meals to me, but I was never invited into anybody's home.
No.
Ever. Like,
all the time I'd be like, hey, supper's at this time, come on.
I couldn't tell you where any of them, yeah, it was like a really disconnect.
Oh, well, we had friends, you know, I had several, you know, we had friends, you know, and our kids were friends, so on and so forth, as the kids were growing up. Families that run on hard times and this and that, like, man, we're lucky to have ramen, or just the kids are eating ramen, and I've got, you know, some leftover. I robbed some crackers from the Wendy's. because I couldn't afford the chili and I'm eating, this and that. It's like, dude, get over here, bring the family. We'll just have the kids play and this and that. We'll come home and we'll do a big hoodoo or this, that, or we'd make something that would stretch. We go, here, we're going to make like spaghetti or something like that. And here's enough for you to take home. And it's, oh my gosh, it's like, dude, we're not going to eat all this. Here, I only do this and that.
And that's weird for me because the community I did grow up in was a lot smaller and we were in and out of each other's homes all the time. And so like being in a different community where it was like you didn't know where anybody lived, it was really weird.
Well, and that's one thing I think I learned as I grew up is just because they're family or people say we're friends doesn't always make them that, because the proof's in the pudding. When it comes down, it's easy to be friends with somebody when they're at their high time. It's those people that are there when you're down low, kicked down at the scratch of bottom, that you truly know who the real people are. I mean, that's really what comes in. And that even includes what's going on with CPS. I mean, imagine all the people that have pulled away. I mean, the first person that would have cast you out had you been in that would have been a church organization. Oh my gosh, you got that. You realize people are getting framed, right? That these corrupt individuals are not following the Constitution, let alone their there's a word you use, Christian nationalists, especially in the term of all red, white, and blue and everything else, but they don't understand the first thing about Constitution, but they're conditioned, and it's just crazy.
Christine here is on the right track. She's figuring it out. Yes, and this is what we have.
Christine, you do have a layer of protection because you are a witness in the case. But like I said, it's not as much as you filing your own case with your own TRO and connecting all the dots together to say, I'm protected here, but I'm also protected under this case. But I want a court order that is enforceable because you're just a witness. And they're going, is it? And that's a weird discretion that they have, especially with the U.S. Marshals and stuff like that, because we did learn that from several people going, hey, when I do this, I say, listen, I understand you are, but if they're actually causing you physical harm, that's a different story versus I want all this other stuff. But now you have a great standing to file your TRO, is what they said, or something from the judge to say that. Now, like I said, the TRO, once it's signed by the judge, there will be a hearing on whether or not it will continue past. I think the maximum amount is 14 days. And after that, the judge can put it into, what do they call that? Starts with an I.
An injunction?
Injunction, a federal injunction. Yeah, brain fart there. A federal injunction to prevent them from doing anything and basically tie their hands to say, don't you dare. Because now they're put on notice by the federal court of saying, if you do, this will become a federal felony. It will become a federal felony to mess with that.
You're figuring it out. You're on the right track. Good job. So,
but and that's why we say we try to help with you guys, but that's where we kind of end at the affidavit, and we try to push you in the right direction, saying the rest is up to you, and this is why, because your case is different than ours.
We can't
so and I'm not a lawyer, and it's or an advocate or anything like that, and that's something you're supposed to be able to do. And ensuring information and educating yourself is not. Once again, it's been ruled on, and if you'll go back and look and say, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, and this is something that was brought up, and people say, well, what's a case like do it? Real simple. You ever heard of the term or the website and everything else called LegalZoom? Did you know that the Bar Association tried to sue LegalZoom for practicing law without a license, and they lost the case?
Nice.
Big time. Yeah, so there's your reference point, Your Honor. You're going to have to look up the case law, this particular thing versus, LegalZoom. The website, they were publishing those documents that you could fill out and all this other stuff. And here's the funny part is attorneys will go on websites as attorneys that do the short form and cheat off of these things. They never take and do a damn thing themselves. I mean, some of the higher ones may take and do it, but half of them, let me find that little form I had, and I just fill out this generic form because it's a cheat sheet. Because people get lazy, and you figure with the money they make, you're not doing all the research. You're not having your legal assistant draft the whole thing specific to your case, they're going to find cheat sheets, which is why half the crap gets kicked out. Oops, I messed up on that one. We wouldn't know anything about that, would we, out of a certain attorney down in Texas? But, you know, that's a whole nother matter.
Give me the missing
But
one.
yeah, let's get into some of the stuff. And like I said, the
So
meat,
hold on.
we've go ahead.
Can so Christine, I want to point this out because I've been trying to explain this to people. She says because religion means to listen and repeat. What other system do we know is exactly the same way?
Public education,
The education
regurgitation, no
You sit
free
there,
thought.
you listen, you're talked to, repeat, right? All you do is you take the information they give you and then you take tests. And it's just regurgitating the information you're fed.
And you don't learn a
Exactly
damn thing.
like that. All the systems are exactly like this, everybody. Like it, but it starts with the education system. Everything starts with the education system. They do not want you to think outside the box.
This is the conditioning system that the government that Trump has been talking about, and the rest of them, as far as the deep state, the corporation, and everything else. This is what they're talking about. That system that has been treating you like sheep, and mislabeling things and saying this doesn't exist. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist and everything. Did you know the word conspiracy theorist actually came from the CIA? To disprove information. Wait a minute, I thought, you know, we're not even using the scientific method anymore. I mean, you know, what is the basis of the scientific method? You have a thought or a theory, you then test that theory, and if that theory comes back to become fact, well, then those are the facts of the results of the thing, and that is called the scientific method. Now, moving on, we're going to talk about a little bit here. We're going to pick up because, you know, Sharon wasn't on last week, and I know Darren, I don't know where Darren's going or whatever else that's going on this week, but we're going to recap a little bit. And what we were talking about is constitutional rights and having you understand what they mean on many different levels. Now, we dealt with the legal part of it last time and giving you good examples. Well, tonight, we're going to cover some of the psychological aspects of what, or the mental health aspects, we'll say, of the constitutional rights and what it means. So we're going to start off, once again, is right here, is, see if it came up because I got to switch screens. And we're going to go here, I think over here at the bottom, is freedom of religion, speech, press, and assembly, and petition. Congress shall make no law. Now, understanding this, the only people that can make a law, even though you've heard it all your, probably most of your life and everything else, well, that's a state law, that's a state law. There is no such thing as a state law. That is a lie. That is another thing you've been conditioned on. Why? Because Congress of the federal government is the only one that has the power to make laws and create laws. So even your state and all these cops and officers and lawyers, well, state law, there's no such thing. If you don't believe me, I challenge you to a federal court, and the federal court will strike you down so hard because there is so much case law on that fact. It's crazy. But let's talk about this. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Or now understand, when these are written, this is also with constitutional rights with accountability. In other words, you can't hurt someone else and you can't damage someone else's property. That summarizes the Constitution just as simple as can be. It's 101. Exercise or abridging the freedom abridging the freedom of speech, the ability to talk, or of the press to write, to broadcast, or do what we're doing right here. You cannot take and stop it. Or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. That's our court systems. That's the other branch of government, okay? That's where we make our petitions known, okay? But let's talk about that. And we'll downsize this. But let's talk about that. What does that mean psychologically? And let's go to this here. If I feel that somebody won't take and oppresses me to my belief systems, or let alone, what would that mean if I couldn't speak? In other words, what I thought or anything else.
If you couldn't speak at all, I mean.
Well, in other words, I have no voice. In other words, I just existed. That would mean you were just something tangible, just like, a house or a tire or anything else.
Let's be honest. I mean.
Well, that doesn't make us human. Am I correct?
Yeah, to lose your voice.
Because these are inalienable rights given to us by our Creator.
Yeah, losing your voice would be like losing your identity in a way. You have no way to voice your thoughts or your opinions or even things that you've learned that are facts. I mean, you have no way to communicate with anybody about what's happening. Like, they just, yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to another one here. Okay, so talking about speech now, press is the ability for you and I to talk or broadcast to others our opinions, facts, and some of the other things that are out there. Now, understanding the difference between press is not propaganda. Let's make sure that we're very clear, and there is federal case law that says no, propaganda is not press. As a matter of fact, even after the end of World War II, under crimes of humanity, under the World Court, even the press was executed for what they did in printed propaganda. So let's make sure that is very clear. But let's go on to the right to peaceably assemble. Now, we're seeing a lot of this stuff, especially in once again your home state, California, as well as Washington and several of the others, even in Chicago. These people that are in the middle of the highways and roadways and everything else. That's not peacefully assembling, nor is that's infringing upon the rights of somebody to go do what they want to freely move, and that you're restricting their rights.
That's inhibiting somebody else's rights. That's inhibiting commerce. That's inhibiting somebody's ability to get to the hospital if they need to. That's inhibiting somebody's right to travel. I mean, that's definitely infringing on other people's rights to do that, for sure.
Now, when you're doing that, imagine feeling trapped. See, we're supposed to be. It's not the Constitution is not about the government or about the people or it's about this. It's about individual liberties. Now, you guys have probably been told something completely different out there. It's about the democracy. It's about this. No, it's not. It's about the constitutional republic and individual liberties. My liberties. You can't infringe upon my liberties. You can't infringe upon her liberties. And now we're going to talk, like I said, a little bit more of that when it talks about, the press is being able to speak those things. In other words, print those and get the information out to the people. And, and peacefully assemble. You're not doing that. You're standing on a thing and you're talking to somebody or you're, putting up banners. Hey, that's great. Assemble peacefully. But when you start chucking rocks and concrete and the thing, which is why I think you're going to take and plow people down. I don't care whether you agree with it or not. You're impeding upon somebody else's rights, and they have other rights to move on and a right to defend yourself. Now we're going to get to that one. Now, the petitions of the government. Imagine having a complaint. Say you have grievances.
Okay.
Imagine if nobody ever listened to your grievances and you were right and you were done wrong.
Oh, I cannot possibly imagine that. Wait, yes, I can.
Once again, these state court systems that are massively corrupt. Mm-hmm. Now, that's the first part. Now, that's your First Amendment and how we understand that if we don't have the ability, this in a way, I guess you could say is not just a right, but this is talking about, I believe this First Amendment, wouldn't you agree that this covers communication?
As far as communication.
Repressing communication. This is repressing communication with other people.
Freedom of speech, communication, yeah. I believe that would fall under that purview.
Well, freedom of speech as far as your religion between you and your creator. The freedom of speech, if you will, between press to share ideals and or topics and so on and so forth and facts to come together. I mean, for us not to come together and isolate, I read that was the biggest thing during the lockdowns thing, that they filed a lot of stuff. Wait a minute. We have a right to assemble, and locking us down is not valid thing to do. You can't isolate us.
Right. Well, and on top of that, to isolate people like that, that's a huge violation. I mean, like, that goes into people's mental health. It takes away their community, which we're all I mean, humans are community creatures. Like, we need to have community. We need to have our,
Yes.
we need to be able to interact with each other. Like, to be completely isolated like that is just horrific on people's mental health. So I do
And
believe
you
that it's under that.
and did you see what Barbara put in there? One of their punishments in there was being put on silenced. In other
Yeah.
words, suppressed. That freedom of speech was gone, was not
Well,
allowed.
of course, because they didn't want you talking, and
No.
that's not right. It's not. That's not right at all. But what? But isn't that? It's kind of like that whole thing of like, if you weren't doing anything wrong, then you would have nothing to hide in the first place. So the
Yeah.
fact that you have to silence anybody or ignore their grievances or ignore their petitions or whatever else it is tells me, maybe you're up to something you shouldn't be up to.
Well, and that's once again, it's a reverse psychology, and they'll use it. Listen, you'll cooperate with us, or you'll let us in your home unless you have something to hide. No, regardless if I have something here or I don't. Once again, there's another amendment on that protects me, so you can't manipulate me.
Mm-hmm.
You see, these
Yeah.
constitutional rights prevent manipulation, and so
Well,
your grievances come to the court. Now, the state isn't the place to deal with it. Why? Because it's about constitutional rights violations. And then we're going to deal with, let's talk about Alicia. She talks about their grievances going to CPS and why it's on deaf ears. Why? Because the checks and balances systems of even checking itself, of course, it's not going to get itself in trouble. And
the,
there's no panel with people or anything else to take and come through that. I mean, it's ridiculous. And let's go a step further. Let's go around that, for example. And with this, your lawyers and everything else and stuff like that, when you file a complaint with the state or the Board of Accountability or the professional responsibility, and goes, hey, who looks through those? The judges and magistrates. As a matter of fact, one of ours actually sat on a council of, what was that? Integrity or something like that?
I don't know, but I think the clerk wouldn't even like file.
They won't even take it. No, they refuse to file it. And let alone even the local sheriff's department and police department didn't take a report on it. That's a violation of their oath. That's denying a thing. They're being added to the suit. I mean, when it comes to it. Now, going to Christine's question just real quickly that she's coming down to, as far as your petitions, one thing, it's not about feelings. It's going to do with documented facts. You're going to have video, and you're going to have a full perspective range, not just a clip, a full video and everything else like this, or evidence, or multiple people testifying of these particular things to go into the court. That, the rule of thumb is 2 or more witnesses. It is the rule of thumb. More than one person doing it for it to become a fact from their perspective and without of free will.
I mean,
but once again,
down to, is it a physical,
mental,
or is it mental, emotional? Because the court doesn't recognize mental, emotional. Unfortunately, we all know it's
CPS does, but let's put it this way. I saw one that was kind of interesting today, and this went for both doctors, with doctors and with psychiatrists and psychologists were asked, how many people have you cured? Oh. And the number one response was, I've never cured or healed anybody.
No. So, what's really fun? I should have sent this to you. I ran across the video. I saved it. Maybe I'll send it to you later. But a therapist, like a full-on psychologist, right? All of the credentials, says there's no such thing as a mental disorder. What it is we aren't backwards. The system we live in is backwards, and it's the broken part. It's not us that's broken. It's the system, and the things that you are experiencing in reaction to the system would be normal. And I was like, oh, finally somebody said it. It's not about us. It's about our systems. They're broken. And
now, let me deal with this, Rochelle. Bring back that question about being in a hospital here, and remind me when we get to the Fourth Amendment, because this is a huge topic for hospitals. And we're going to go over that. But let's go down to this. Let's go to the next one. And once again, this is one of my favorites, because it balances everything.
It does.
The
Well,
Second Amendment.
it's supposed to.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to secure a free state, the right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What does that mean? That means psychologically, if you violate my rights to the point you steal from me or anything else, I have a right to defend myself and repel you, even if by force. What does that mean? Let's go through some of this stuff here. Now, what does that mean psychologically? You got to be mentally prepared to defend what is yours.
Correct. But I also think it gives people a sense of security and even a confidence, self-confidence, when they are able to do so, because it's a horrible thing to walk through a world with no ability to protect yourself and the ones you love.
And feel safe. So we're going to go through something. We're going to talk about immunity here. We're going to talk about a few other things. When someone comes in to anywhere that you're at, or you feel your life's threatened, you have a right to defend yourself and or your children against somebody. And understand this, we're going to tie some things together. If a police officer violates, that is armed and or not armed, somebody that comes in and breaks into your home with no warrant, no court order, and no probable cause or anything else, and they cross the threshold, even the tiptoe of their foot touches on the threshold to come into your home, that is the line marker under the federal court ruling. You have a right. Their immunity is gone. In other words, it don't matter who the hell they work for. You just broke into my house. You have a legal right to defend your home. That is constitutionally sound and is backed up by federal case law. Why? Why? You're going to ask why. Here's why. Because they broke the law, the Constitution, infringed upon your rights. Therefore, anything after that is fruit from a poisonous tree. You defended your home. That is protected by another constitutional rights. So when they say, oh, well, they have immunity and this and that, no, it's gone. Your immunity and any protection you had under your job or anything else, including the fact that they broke into your home, it's just simply how you articulate it. Do I see a court order or a warrant? Was it presented to me with a sworn affidavit attached to it?
Right.
For the warrant? Nope. Was the court clerk seal or anything else? Did anything else? Guess what? I got it on video. Now what are you going to do? Because they just broke into my house with no probable cause. Well, they need to see your child. No. Police cannot get involved in civil matters now. They violated and lost their oath. You can strip them of it, and you go after their bonds. You file against their bonds, and you strip them of their license and everything else. With no bond, they can't work in that industry ever again.
Well, if you think about it, there was a time in our history where you wouldn't even approach a person's home or property without fair warning first, because everybody was always on their toes anyway. So
you were met at the front door or on the front porch with a double-barreled shotgun. Can I help you? And everybody was armed to the teeth. You come through them doors, you better have what you need. But once again, that was conditioned out of you, wasn't it? Guns are evil. This is bad. This is bad. We need to just worry about these people and let somebody else protect me. The Constitution says that you are your first responder. You are your very first responder. And I guarantee you, every officer out there or deputy or fireman or anything else will teach their children the exact same thing. They don't come in the house. They come in the house. You handle your business. And all they have to do is say, I feared for my safety or my life. and somebody coming into your house illegally and saying they were reaching for my children, I feared for my children's safety, was a lot of the case law that was in there, and it cannot go before a state court. It has to go before a federal because this is a constitutional issue. They lost it.
All you have to do is look up the statistics on 911 response. Like, anywhere from 30 minutes to hours before they ever show up. Like, and I mean, if you don't know even just the basics on either how to defend yourself or how to deal with basic first aid emergency situations, like, you're depending on somebody who's not even there and may not.
Wait a minute. Shouldn't public schools deal with that, with all that federal funding and all that other stuff, let alone teach us our rights and all these other things? Oh, wait, they don't. No. You getting the picture now? You getting this? They are wanting to overthrow our country. Yes, the deep state, the corporation, as well as others, including to find out that CCP's been involved with a bunch of other stuff with the DNC. Yes, that's all been connected, and all of that is coming down.
They want us dependent. They want us complacent. They want us compliant. They want us
freedom is not free.
No,
right? Now, you think everybody does, like, soldiers and everything else that go off and protect us. Well, that's their job to do this and that. You know whose job it is to do it at home? Ain't that what your daddy taught you?
Taught me what? Sorry, something.
To defend your own home.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but even I got kind of out of that mindset myself. I got complacent as well. I mean, like, it's easy to do every day a certain way, and you're a part of like the mainstream everything, and it's really easy to lose sight of what's really important. And when it mattered, I did not have it. So that's on me. But I mean, like, it's really easy to go down.
Let's continue on, because we're going to get to someone, because I know the 4th is going to take a while. The quartering of soldiers. No soldier in time of peace be quartered in anybody's home without consent of the owner. In other words, they just can't come in. That includes the law enforcement or anybody else. They don't have a right to come into your home and take it over without your permission. Nor in a time of war. It doesn't matter if you're in war. You can't use my home. Sorry, go to the next one.
Right.
But in a manner prescribed by law. Now, state says, well, state law says there's no such thing. You're being lied to. Congress, the only one to do is federal laws, which is what? The Constitution. And what was the post that we put up there? The Constitution, and you even said the Constitution wasn't designed to restrain the people, but to restrain those serving in government that we have elected and appointed, the elected and appointed officials and actors, to restrain them from overreach and power mongering.
But you have to understand, in order to understand why they wrote it that way, you have to understand what was happening to them in their original country. Like, soldiers were being quartered in their houses and taking over
their food, their farms, their everything the family had until they were wiped out.
I mean, it happened, and they were not allowed to carry weapons and protect themselves. And like, there was a lot that was going on in that time period that there was a reason.
Well, Lexington and Concord. That's where the munitions stash was. If you go back and look at that war and where the British tried to come in, that's where Paul Revere said, hey, the British are coming. They're coming for our weapons. That's what he wrote through the night to warn everybody, is get to the stash, empty it out, and arm yourselves. Those are our supplies. That is our munitions and our artillery and everything else. Guys, get up there and empty it out. That was the battle at Lexington and Concord. That's what all that was about. That's why they don't teach that in school, do they? Oh, well, that was just the British. No. If you don't believe that you ain't been lied to, go look at the true story for the Boston Tea Party. You're going to love that one.
That's a fun one.
What you've been told in school is a lie. Go look at the real story and then go look at the painting again. Makes a whole lot more sense.
Mhm.
Here's the one that's going to take a while. Search and seizure. Now, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, your papers. That means your children. Your papers, houses means where you dwell, including, here you go for the one for the hospital, that if you're filing your federal, they violated my Fourth Amendment right by coming into my hospital room. Yes, there's case law on that, and a hotel room, your camper. All of that is covered under the Fourth Amendment of search and seizure. You cannot come in and steal in a hospital. Where's your warrant? Where's your court order? Where's this got to be? Because if there's a court order, we have to have a hearing. And then there has to be truth.
Can we talk about doctors not having any legal authority whatsoever?
None. Doctors have zero.
Legal authority.
That is practicing law without a license, and you can charge that doctor or nurse or anybody else. All they can do is report a crime if they feel there's a crime, and then it must be investigated. If they take, seize, or arrest or anything else after that, guess what? They violated your rights again. Why? Because you're not supposed to be arrested unless they personally witnessed the crime. Under 18 USC 1201, yes, there is a federal law on that. They have to witness it firsthand.
I believe
if they do not, they have to go before a grand jury and get a warrant, which they don't have. You see how much the state courts are screwing things up and not following the actual law? You can file on every single bit of this in your own federal case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I believe there's also case law in place to cover giving false testimony or false statement.
Yeah, giving a false statement without having firsthand knowledge. You can challenge that. That's why you're supposed to have a hearing about these things before it goes forward. That witness statement is not true. You cannot just take that person. You have to have at least two, unless it's a law enforcement officer. That's right. One person can go, well, I saw this. That's hearsay. Where's your evidence? Not admissible in court. But the state courts are allowing it, which is unconstitutional. Why do you think President Trump called out administrative law judges, your state judges, for doing unconstitutional stuff? They're fully aware of it, and they're making money off of it.
Yep.
But let's go on here. Against your personal effects and against unreasonable, in other words, probable cause, searches and seizures to take. You got to have a reason to take. That's like a magistrate coming in and saying, we're going to kick you out of your house, and I'm the sole owner of the home. That's illegal seizure.
Christine, you're going to have to do some of your own research on this, honey. We don't have a book specific. There's books that have been written about some of this. I know Malcolm Dallas has some good books that he's written. I know Darren has a book. Punisher has a book he wrote with some of this information. But, I mean, a lot of this is just hours and hours and hours of research.
Yeah, and going through and quoting case law to make sure that it's in federal case law and making sure it's in your right jurisdiction and everything else. You're going to have to look within those things and or give those things, which is a beautiful thing of some of these AIs, is you just tell it where you live and just say what is applicable, what case laws are applicable to my particular situation. And that's how that thing, you teach it how to filter if you get that deep into some of these AI programs.
ChatGPT has been a lot of parents' best friend right now. It's not 100% perfect. It's not like completely there. You have to know what questions to ask it. We have a friend who's actually working on a program to help with some of this, but it's still in the so you have to kind of know how to do it.
Yeah. And understanding too, the person that we're talking about is a paralegal that has done both state and federal paralegal for both. So they understand that thing, but they also understand the difference between law and codes and statutes, and that the state is not really even supposed to or do anything with you or do anything, to you or anything unless you have a contract or a contract law. which there's a whole different thing on contract law, and it doesn't just go under the state standard. It must meet the federal standard for contract law. But once again, it's saying that they're saying that these warrants cannot be issued. In other words, if you can't get a warrant or a court order, it has to be upon probable cause, supported by an oath or affirmation, and particularly describing exactly. In other words, not just let me into the house to look for this, that. It has to be on there for here, here, and here. You can't go here. Well, wait a minute. Your warrant or court order didn't cover this. Mm-hmm. We got a problem.
Sam, a homeless shelter would be the same, because it's not just houses, it's persons and papers and effects as well, which would cover you, your children, any paperwork, and anything that belonged to you. Like, it doesn't matter what the location is. Houses is if you have a house that you're living in. But otherwise, I don't think the location...
Well, once again, that covers people that have been displaced. So if you go through the flood thing that went through, like North Carolina, Tennessee, and everything else, and the people had very little of anything, they still have a right to set up camp, live in a tent, or anything else that they could, which North Carolina, I believe, is getting ready to get hit with massive class action suits, as well as FEMA, once they found out that FEMA was spending money, let alone the resources from North Carolina and Tennessee. They actually uncovered at the border that somebody had relocated those supplies to people in Tennessee and North Carolina. It was found that those supplies that were supposed to go to those families were relocated and given to illegals that actually came across the border and giving them that stuff. So that was misappropriation of whoever did that, and they are investigating that, and they will be prosecuting those people. So that has a lot to do with it. But psychologically, somebody coming into your home without these things, I mean, even just coming into your home, the psychological aspects of this is just devastating, because and I know it's the aspect of where I feel safe. It's the place your kids felt safe. It's this, and I think I've heard it, and you've heard it. A lot of people that go, I just hate living in the same home that CPS is just broken into. There's just so many bad I don't feel safe in my own home.
There's a lot
of hold on. But once again, had you had known those CPS people, I think I lost video on her. Those CPS people coming in to our homes, knowing we could have defended it with our Second Amendment, and going, well, now you've done something to a state worker. No, where's the warrant, court order, or anything else? That's a constitutional rights violation. Matter of fact, their immunity's gone. Who they work for, or that doesn't excuse the fact they committed a felony. I mean, I defended my home. It's just that simple. And once again, we're not proposing violence or anything else. You have to make your own decision, and then you have to stand behind that decision and articulate that. And that's where they're counting on you're going to fail. So that's one thing in particular that we're going to have to figure out, that we're going to have to take and figure out. You're going to have to make your own decision, and you're going to have to defend that position of why you did what you did. And that's why, it was funny that one cop, there's some places that said, well, they have to be so many feet in your house. And I literally, and I'm not saying this, but I was told by one law enforcement that turned around and says, hey, we've got a thing. They have to be at least 6 foot in their house. He said, so even though you shoot them outside, drag them back into your house and then drag them back out. That way it looks like they were shot on the inside of the house at least 6 feet. Whoa. But you understand, these are law enforcement that are going to cover up and tell you how to get through things. Am I telling you to do that? No,
it's your property. If they weren't invited on your property,
no,
they don't have a right to be there, right? I mean,
but that's covering some of the state castle doctrines. But still, to defend your home is, well, you have a right to retreat. Well, the castle doctrine or not, the Second Amendment says I must be secure. That includes being able to defend it. So half of your castle doctrines aren't even constitutional.
Right. Alicia, I'm with you on that one. I struggle even not being home, having strange people drive up or somebody knock on the door. I will have a heart attack, honestly, because it's terrifying to have somebody knock on your door when you're not expecting anybody after something like this. Like, that's normal.
Stay strapped or get clapped.
Yeah.
Listen, y'all may take it and have some things about. I grew up in the inner city, okay, that bad part of town and everything else with a lot of that stuff. So understand this: everybody stayed strapped. Why? Because that's just the way it was. Somebody dealt with it, you got dealt with. That's just the bottom line of everything, because you lived in a place that was a heightened sense of awareness and security. Because once again, those are areas that if it wasn't locked down, chained down, or alarmed and this and that, they were still going to steal it or make an attempt to it. But if it wasn't, you had a chance of your stuff being stolen all the time, and you have a right to defend those things. But once again, you've got to be mentally prepared, just like anything else, and get you, if you do get you a weapon, a pistol, rifle, whatever it may be, this and that, please, 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 please get some training.
Yes.
Get with somebody
Yes.
that knows what they're doing on how to handle it, and not make sure that the other thing is too, even though your blood and adrenaline is pumping, you've got to slow it down, and you have got to think in the midst of chaos, because otherwise that's how people get shot or hurt that they don't mean to hurt. And then that causes a whole nother problem. Train with your children, train with your spouse, train with this, understanding everybody has a code word, this, that. You go into lockdown, everybody's a certain thing, you know where they're at. They have a secondary location if that is threatened. They know to go somewhere else, how to defend themselves. Listen, back in the day, you had, and I'm not kidding you, you had 7-year-olds being able to hold a shotgun on somebody and take a life if they broke into your home in this country. Wow.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Does the right to bear arms only cover firearms, or does it cover any kind of weapon?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. If you want cannon fodder, bring your cannon fodder on. If you have a slingshot, if you have an air pistol that is just as deadly, some of these 30 and 50 caliber air rifles and everything else, these are weapons for self-defense. A knife.
But no.
Listen, you could throw a computer at them. You could throw a dog at them. A dog is a weapon.
Well, I just wondered if that counts, because I never really got clarity on that. Like, does it matter what type of anything that you
could beat the hell out of them with a cast iron skillet and bludgeon them to death? Is still considered a weapon.
Awesome.
Hey, you know what else is a weapon?
There's a lot of things, honestly.
See this?
To make anything.
This goes into soft tissue really nice, like that. Self-defense will teach you to look for weapons around, evaluate your surroundings. Anything can be used as a weapon. A pen. Everybody jokes, oh, he's trying to make that thing with John Wick took and killed somebody with a pencil. Oh, yeah, you can do it.
I mean, there's a lot of options out there. I was just wondering if that amendment covers all of it, or if it's just
covers everything.
Okay.
You have a right to defend yourself against anything. You can use rope. You can use chain. You can use a bear trap. All these things are weapons.
Maybe not so.
Brenda says her mouth's her weapon. Well, Brenda, you know, I don't know. You'll have to record the what is the term for that? How high a body count that mouth has caused decimation and the impact of shrapnel, and get back to me on that one. But yeah, paper cuts. Believe it or not, yes. And if you'll look into this, paper cuts can be a weapon. There's also a thing called death of 1,000 cuts. There's been known torture devices to where they have done 1,000 paper cuts across using salt water to torture people. I mean, there are many different things.
Old Swiss Family Robinson reels going through their head now, because I'm just like picturing a pit with a
you can form a stick. You can go old-fashioned Predator on a Predator Part 1 and start forming, natural made weapons, logs swinging through the air. Listen, I mean, you want to look into some of those other, what was the other one? They did a remake on it. Oh gosh, what was it? Bruce Willis. Oh, Death Wish. Go look at the old 1980s and 70s Death Wish movies. that dude did. I mean, there was people in there that did some things, and every bit of it. Oh, well, you can't this. Yeah, if they're in my home, I have anything to put on the floor. Or I mean, he had nails and boards sticking through. And people do this all the time too. Believe it or not, they'll put it on there on cabins. If you don't in Alaska for the bears to keep bears out of cabins and everything else. That there's all sorts of things that they'll fabricate and do. And trust me, that's why I say don't ever try and take and commit war on our soil, because you turn some of these rednecks loose that do some of this stuff. And I say that with much love. The amount of stuff that I've seen people come up just for fun to mess with, I've seen them launch hot water heaters, gas rockets, all sorts of other. I mean, they could fabricate some stuff. Give a man a welder and a few other things, or a screw gun and a couple other things. Man, let me tell you something. They'll go to town and they'll build something. And I mean, you don't believe me? Look at Killdozer. There's
sure,
a man that
has
some resources.
But nobody belongs in my home, and nobody gets to touch my children. Like, that's just... We're having kids stolen from good parents and removed from their home for no good reason. Like, investigation is one thing, but that's not what they're doing.
Listen, when you've got a CPS worker that will violate your rights, lie, forge, commit perjury, put forth false documents that you live somewhere else that you don't even live, literally, and these are just examples. And somebody that doesn't go through, and then a judge that says, or a magistrate that'll says, I'm going to err on the side of caution. Those are constitutional rights you just erred on, buddy.
And that's exactly what we're talking about. We're not talking about going out and hunting people down. We're talking about you messed with my property, my rights, my children. That is not okay.
And they covered your butt in a judicial thing by no due process, no jury, nobody that you could talk to the jury about and say, and put your petitions before your peers and say, look at all the illegal stuff they did, let alone just cover up. And if you don't believe me, it's going on. I'm in Blount County, Tennessee, and I know Richard is too, but we've made national headlines of what happened when they actually caught we'll call it somebody that was grooming children and petting children, that was a teacher in the school system here for over 20 years, let alone connected to a couple other things that were here with school board members that were burying that stuff, that got 6 months and deferment. Then it was wiped off their record, never lost their teaching degree, and this, that, and everybody's crying out, well, how could this happen? Why? Because that makes more money for CPS and the court systems. This isn't about protecting the children. This is about how much money they can make and rape from their communities. When I say it comes down time, and once all this is said and done, and they are found of treason and sedition, I'd love to have a front row to your execution. Why? Then you need to look, well, you can't say that. I sure can. You know why? 18 USC 2381 covers treason and committing war against the Constitution is punishable by death.
It's true.
So when I say they're fearing us of this and that, they're literally going to be running for their lives. Why? Because once this all comes out and everything goes on, the charges will be treason and sedition. And then when, I didn't say if, I said when, that's how much hard evidence there is. When they're found guilty of treason and sedition, not in a court. Oh, wait, you guys didn't realize that, did you? Treason and sedition charges don't go through the courts.
No, they don't.
They're turned over to the United States military. And then they get a military tribunal, and they have no rights. They have to articulate for themselves, judges, magistrates, lawyers, all of them involved in all this corruption of stealing children. You have to defend yourself against what? The Constitution. And there's no excuses, because the evidence against you is going to be so heavy. And if you think we're the only ones that have it, we've got this evidence spread out all over the United States and internationally.
Alicia, that one. So we actually figured that one out because we had that issue too. And they did not allow us to bring cameras in or phones in, and they actually blocked Gunner being able to bring evidence into the courtroom.
Yep.
Which
when the caseworker committed perjury on the stand, which now my previous attorney becomes a federal witness, and oh yeah, the local courts know about it. When they did that, they actually had all the judges up at the local courthouse had signed a thing saying you're not allowed to have cell phones, recording devices, or anything else in the courtroom. No, that is illegal. You have the right, the constitutional right to take and film anyone that's serving as a public servant doing their job. Yes,
correct.
you do. When they sign that, that's why none of them come after me and don't mess with me or anything, because they all know they're screwed. And one attempt on anything, I've already got the evidence on you, and they already know it's all coming because they're over here before the ball drops.
I think that cameras should be required in courtrooms because
oh, absolutely,
the second day of recordings of our very first case run
were tampered with,
and all of the video footage in the hallways, and they were doing some shady stuff. I mean, we knew they were doing shady.
Yeah.
We actually went to try to get that evidence and
filed a subpoena for it.
Suspiciously gone.
It's gone. The attorney, even with the appeal, hey, I need the hearing. I need to get back into the hearing for the first one before the magistrate. Day 2, gone. Gone. You know whose testimony was there?
And all the
video.
I
called everything out.
Oh yeah, and the part where the magistrate says we don't deal with constitutional rights. That one.
Yeah, we don't deal with constitutional rights in this courtroom. So and you just admitted to losing jurisdiction?
Colluding with the magistrate. I mean, like all of the things that happened and gone. So now it's our word against their word. Well,
not really, because our word is then taken once again by the court says because they have tampered with evidence. We haven't tampered with it. Which now at the same time we have not just our word, we also have attorneys' words on what was there and said and everything else.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got to tell it. Once again, that's tampering with evidence. And that's been entered on. Oh, wait. Did we happen to take and file that with our federal filing? Yes, we did.
Michael, all they need is an excuse to get in. I mean, they'll use any excuse. They'll use any loophole. They get paid. There's no incentive for keeping a family together. There's no financial incentive whatsoever to keep a family together or to reunify. All of the financial incentives are on separation, on foster care and adoption. Like there's no financial anything for reunification. It's backwards.
Well, now let's go through some of the things you and I were talking. Let's cover and kind of squash together and wrap things up with the first 4 amendments that we have. Psychologically speaking, if you weren't had to have those particular rights, what would it do to your brain, your mental health, your physical health, everything else if those did not exist and were protected?
I think that we would see people become mindless automatons, which is exactly what they've been trying to do to us.
So what we're going to talk about is
you don't have any rights to your person or your home. You don't have the ability to defend yourself if something happens. You wouldn't have the ability to speak up when something happens. You would be able to be walked all over by anybody. Like it just.
Now we've addressed kind of like when people say, how do you heal from the PTSD that CPS has put you through? Because it's not just CPS, what they've put you through. It's the violation of your actual constitutional rights that is causing what you guys are experiencing out there that we're talking about. And in specific avenues through 1 through 4 that we've talked about of how it affects your brain and your mental health.
Everybody's going to be a little bit different. For me personally, I have an even extra layer to it because I come from a military family. I have family members who have fought in like 4 different wars and have served and gone through all this, and to have the actors to the states a branch, a part, a piece of our government, however you want to say it, turn around and walk all over the rights that my family has fought for and stood for generations, literally, is completely devastating, because it makes you wonder, what was the point? Like, why are we sacrificing so much just to be walked all over? And that's just one aspect of what I have experienced. A lot of you have very different experiences and different perspectives, but just that whole violation of somebody in your space accusing you of things that are just unimaginable, that you could never, and then have them substantiate it, possibly, and then kick you out of your home or take your children away from you, or like any number of combinations thereof. Like, I am not shocked to see PTSD, to see CPTSD, to see depression, to see anxiety, to see all of these things that we all have to fight through every single day just to keep going. Like, that's, I would be shocked if I didn't see that. And that's kind of like what I was talking about earlier, that lady saying, you know, there isn't any such thing as a mental disorder. It's the system that's broken. It's not us that's broken. It was never meant to be this way. We were meant to live safely in our homes with our families. Like, our children has the right to be with their parents. We have the right to raise our children, and we all have a right.
And listen, if you don't believe what she's talking about, let me jump in here real quick. If not, go back and look up the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals case. It was in California. I have it. I think I have it here somewhere. Yes. Let me see here. Presley Hardwick, Hardwick, versus Marcia Venruk. I believe I'm spelling that right. It's Vreeken. And you'll see this. This is the one where CPS wants to ask the court on whether or not a CPS worker can lie, or they can hire actors to lie to steal children. This was literally went all the way to the Supreme Court. And there was a ruling on that, but you can go watch that video, and it's almost what she's talking about there is where the courts actually turn around and give you so much case law that how it's so well established that parents do have inalienable rights to their children. And even asking, how do I not put sanctions on you that you're even asking these stupid questions to steal children? But yet it's still going on, and they're still being trained this way.
Right.
So yes, this is a real thing that we're saying. People say, well, where do I find that? Or where do I take and do this and that? Go watch some of these videos. We've posted little clips and this and that on my personal page. You know, once again, you can look it up. It's on YouTube. You can watch the full thing. Once again,
understand that
and here's the, I don't know if you can read it.
No.
There's, okay. Case number 15-55563, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And there's a video on YouTube. But yeah, what we're talking about here is what you're experiencing is exactly what it feels like when your constitutional rights are raped from you. And what you're experiencing is real. And how do you heal from it? Take the fight to them and break it off in their ass. That's how. File your federal cases. File them and hold them accountable and rip everything from them. Okay? Now, the other thing to cover real quick, and I want to cover this real quick, when you're talking about sealed adoptions and everything else, I don't know this and that. That is the power of a federal subpoena. They have to unseal them. The state cannot deny that. It's in federal court. All the state, the beauty of when you go to federal court is the only thing the state gets to do is obey. Do as they're told. Now the roles are reversed, but they do not want to teach you that. They don't want you to understand that. They don't want you to even educate yourself enough to where you are pro se sue juris, and there is a lot of power. Listen to me. And people say, well, I'll just get a federal attorney to do this. you are missing out on so much power in that federal courtroom if you get an attorney to represent you. And people say, what do you mean? There are certain questions they won't ask. There are certain things they won't do. Why? Because they have to also practice in their state and their license. And yes, whether they like to admit it or not, who they going to complain to, because they understand the same thing that we've told you guys about the whole state bar association, the American Bar Association, how corrupt it is, because they'll turn on those lawyers that expose them. And they will take and have them disbarred and do this and do that and all these other things. They will turn on these attorneys, which is why I can't find an attorney to defend my CPS case. Now you know why.
We hear this all the time.
All the time.
Go pro se or you'll never get there. It just seems like there's just blocks everywhere.
Until the ball gets rolling and everything starts coming unwound and everybody going through this and this and that, you're not going, you're going to fail. They're not going to come out. Why? Because they're like vultures. They're like they're like turkey vultures. They don't come around unless something's dead or dying. Then they're going to take and just pick up the cheap scraps. That's just exactly what it is. That's what it comes down to, because they're not going to do that, because it turns on their own system. It's like turning on their employer, which is why the Bar Association needs to be abolished. And there needs to be one standard federal license that any attorney can practice in any state, as well as any federal court. But once again, how are you going to have federal court if they're all abolished and they're all turned over and they're exposed? You're not. Who's going to be left? That's why they don't want this system to fall.
No.
Because this holds them up. The very basis, did you know that every state's basis of functionality within their government parameters take and exist that 70%, if not more, of your state's budget is dependent upon the CPS system? Ouch. Take all that away.
Horrifying.
And that's, go research that. It's 100% true. Take away all the federal funding altogether, they get nothing. What are they going to do? There's no money.
Oh, that's gross.
This is why we were going back to tariffs. Did you know, here's the way this works. In our country, our federal government was making money off of tariffs. In other words, stuff that was shipped and received back and forth, this and that. That's all the money they ever made. This whole thing with the IRS and everything else, it's done. It's over with. It's already been taken care of. Executive order already, we're done. States, the only way that they made money was when businesses were successful and they could tax them off of their products. So the businesses, the corporations got their money. That's why they lobby so heavy, because they know it affects them. I get taxed by the locals that pay for your streets, your infrastructure, your fire department, your sheriff's office. All those state things are supposed to go off of businesses in your state. Oh, who took over the interstates? The federal government did interstate commerce. That happened within that different project within everything else. Department of Energy with getting energy to everybody. The federal government. In other words, collectively, every state needed these things.
Taxes were never supposed to be levied against individuals. Taxes without representation, especially.
Nope.
And no, they love to throw these taxes. California was notorious for it. Have a bill that had what they knew everybody wanted, and then they throw a new tax into it so that people would vote for it.
Yep. And here's the thing. Imagine stripping all that away and going to the Constitution and being free. But until you guys get to that point of start filing and filing and filing and filing and filing and filing against their insurance and filing against their bond, all of a sudden they have nothing left to give. What are they going to do? Foreclose and steal your homes? Nope.
Can't.
They're going to free people. And when we all get together with this CPS thing and with this reckoning, and you guys start filing this case and connecting everything else with it, what happens? Everybody goes bankrupt. The state does. We don't need them. You can't get together with your local businesses in your county and figure out what your budget is, and the people come together to vote what they're going to work on, the roads or the infrastructure or this or that? Do you know how many cities are involved with power that is illegal? It's a private business. Did you know a corporation cannot be involved in government, but yet every single one of your states and programs, including CPS and your local county courtroom and child support courtroom, has a DUNS number? You can go look it up, showing that they're a business. That is illegal.
Yes.
That's why they fear this case coming in. Why? Because all that is going on the federal record.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is, Your Honor. This ain't legal to be on. What's that happen? Then the federal government has the ability and power, once it's on there, to shut down unconstitutional practices. Well, he's talking about martial law. Am I? Or have you not been paying attention that we've got the Marine Corps at New York City and all major capitals and some of the others, let alone Los Angeles and everything else? You don't think that they're not putting martial law into place a little bit at a time with what they have coming to a city near you? You don't think it's in Memphis? You don't think it's over in Lexington? You don't think it's over there? Everybody, what DC is done. The flag has been taken down, given to the president on that military ceremony that was there with the United States Army coming in. That flag ceremony was surrendering the flag of DC. It is now called Washington. Google it. Well, I can type it in. Yeah, it's to assimilate you because you don't know the difference and you people don't keep up. Because that's what they've done with the programming. Zoom in on it. Google Maps. Whoop, whoop. What's it say now? Doesn't say Washington, D.C. I had that conversation several times. If there's no such thing, it's gone. The corporation's dead. It's been overtaken. It's being gutted. That's why they took the IRS out. It's gone. That was meant only for businesses, to regulate stuff federally with businesses for their tariffs. Now they're just going to flat tariff it.
Yep.
You send the check to us. No more third party. The Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not a government entity.
So, Christine, I think that if either of those parties were involved in your CPS case specifically and violated your rights, you can include them. Because you can include anybody who's involved in the case that you need. But if they were not, then it might have to be a separate issue dealt with under a separate situation.
It would fall under pain and suffering and some of those other things. And I can't remember the name for that, but there's that's part of your court thing that, once again, you can calculate how much is based off of those things. Darren's not here tonight, so he would know the word off the top of his head. But punitive damages, that's what that's called, punitive damages. But once again, that has to be proven. And once again, that's your feelings. And you've got to, courts should not have feelings when it comes down. Punitive damages means pain and suffering, mental anguish. In other words, above and beyond pain. And people use this and abuse. Here's the big thing. If we were all fucking grown-ups and we got, hey, it ain't working out, we got divorced, we should be adult enough to do the law, which is everything you had before the marriage is yours. Everything during the marriage is 50-50. The debt, the prosperous, and everything. And bound. That's why they usually tell you the house has to be sold. And that why? Because we have to settle all the debts. Each person gets a little bit of money, and then you both go your own way. That's the way it's supposed to. But you shouldn't need, the judge shouldn't have to do that for you. That's where the judge is supposed to force you to go in and go.
You shouldn't have to, but the system gets weaponized against people all the time. And people use it as an excuse.
Well, with
grown-ups.
Withholding the kid and everything else, that's going to come down to, we should have a 50-50. And then it comes down to, if it's not, and you can't, that's where the courts are supposed to step in and technically mediate or correct those particular things. Because yes, that has gone back. I think one state actually did a time makeup thing to where they were alienating a child, and come to find out, no, now we're going to take the child from you 100% of the time and let them make up all that time. So now you have the child for the next 6 months with no interference. But once again, Those are state things. And when you get that
Unless
involved,
somebody is physically harming your child has a right to both their parents at any given time.
yes.
They should have that right. And I know that it's complications. I mean,
And
relationships
well,
super
let me
complex.
clear.
The
Let me
children
put
should
it
not
this way:
as
you have a
pawns
constitutional right
or
to
as
screw
weapons.
up your own kid. You do.
It's true, but still, there are certain types of physical harm that should not happen to a child, regardless. And I don't care who you are, like, you should not be. So, when it comes to physical harm, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mental, emotional is harder to pin down because it's harder to.
Now, let me address the thing Christine says. She says her ex in another state. Let me clarify something. That is now a federal issue because it involves two different states. Oh,
If
yeah.
they have children together.
Yes, if you have children together. Um,
If you don't have children
once
together, that's
once
not.
again, Alicia, if you're going into this, once again, your claims against you and using this against you, this and that, you would have to turn around and once again prove, once again, one, the CPS even got involved or even how they got involved was unconstitutional. Then you would tie that person to being a co-conspirator is the legal term that would come through there that would be used in any of that. And once again, that's your choice, your particular perspective and anything else. But once again, you got to have the evidence of saying there's something within the case that was done or testimony that was done with this. And then it's a, what is it? Defamation of character, or there's another term too, because one is about printing, the other is about verbal. And you'll have to look at the difference between the two and educate yourself on those.
It's really easy talking about suing the state. It gets a little more complicated when you're dealing with relationships,
Yeah.
with exes, with whatever. Like that's
But
gets
listen,
more complicated. So
let's cover this real quick too.
ChatGPT is what
Guys,
I would say.
we're gonna have to deal with this, and I think Sharon's gonna cover this on one of her shows too, here in the near future. Is with everything RFK has been bringing out about our food and the stuff that's going in our food, that it was actually changing our brain chemistry and messing with our hormones in both men and women. Understand, you have been programmed to fail in your marriages. Yes.
Well,
In other
that's
words,
the only thing that's programming you towards it.
well, to give you one topic, that how our food is tied to our chemistry of all those thoughts that were going on, or some of those other things, or those anger issues that people were having, or some of their sense of doing this and that. You got to understand, our food has been affecting our brain chemistry, and they've been profiting from that through the divorce courts. They've done this to us on purpose, which is why the divorce has gone through the roof. It has nothing to do with that and a no fault divorce. There's the other thing. Well, we just don't like each other, this and that. That's once again, it's a violation of your commitment and oath, because your oath was, if you got married, was for better or for worse, for richer or for poor. And this, in other words, you would stick together. That was your oath. You're violating your oath when you do that. But once again, oaths are not talked about anymore because of people can't, well, if I don't like it, I'll just get divorced. And there are people training their kids, if it doesn't work out, just get divorced. Or if it's, listen, if it's something major.
Divorce isn't the only way to break an oath.
Yes.
I mean, like, if you were to lift your hand to me,
and we have the teeth.
Like, no, thank you. I mean, like, that's breaking your promise to cherish and to love and to protect, right?
And
like, that goes to what the oath is. There's a lot that goes into that. It can be, it just gets complicated.
But once again, when you're messing with brain chemistry and how you think, mind altering drugs through your food that you think is safe at the grocery store, and it's not, which is what RFK is revealing, let alone your doctors who you trust with your health, has turned on you and giving you stuff that is causing autism or this or this or that. Guys, this stuff was not meant to do this. And once again, if your child was in the custody of CPS and they gave them these vaccinations legally, once again, not advised, but that's what they're fearing of. Now everybody can sue the manufacturers for making this stuff and causing these side effects. But if the state had possession of them, everything else, and it was against your consent, Yeah, that opens them up to prosecution and to liability things.
We have a lot
Absolutely.
of
And you can look for it. Now, they wanted to know your show. Listen, if you check out here, this is Gunning for CPS. We're on every Sunday at 9:30 p.m. Our show usually, we've extended our time because we have so much to talk about. And it's been so hard to get it in. We usually cut it off about 2 hours in as guests come in and out because we cover so much pertinent information. But Sharon's show is tomorrow night, and it's on every Monday at 9
9
p.m.
p.m. Standard
Go ahead.
Time. And it's
On
called
YouTube.
Beauty and Ashes. Yes, thank you, John. And I'm a little bit different. I do more mental, emotional support for all of you. And tomorrow, the lovely Sam, who was in the comments earlier, I don't know if she's still around.
Sam!
She's going to join me tomorrow, and we're actually going to talk through and address some of the questions that parents have come up with out these affidavits, as far as like their anxieties and fears and all of that. It's kind of your place to come feel seen and supported. Know you're not alone. We do a lot of interaction with the audience, and it's kind of like your support place to go, I guess you would
And
say.
I'm usually backstage doing some of the producing or putting it on. So most time I just get it started and then they kind of roll with it.
Oh,
Other things happen.
possible? I honestly have so many people hit me up on TikTok, and sometimes the names are different between platforms. So I don't always recognize you when you're here from TikTok, because I don't know if your name is the same or not, but there's so many people talking to me all the time.
Right. We get a lot of back and forth messages and emails and back and forth. And we are very busy, as well as working on stuff, building our own personal case, but understanding one of our main boundaries is, especially if you don't hear from me and stuff, is I'm down rabbit hole, she's down a rabbit hole. And I know that's one thing we put up, that besides our family time and everything else, is this case, and understanding how important this case is, that we need that time. So if we don't get back to you as quick as you think we are, have a little grace, and you're not the center of our universe. There's the other part. We appreciate you, but you're not the center of our world, and we've got bigger fish to fry. Not so we won't get to you, but once again, boundaries. Boundaries. So,
Sam was earlier. She may have left. She was working, so she was tired.
Yeah.
So I just want a quick. We know that going through these CPS cases is horrific. We know that it affects your mental health. We know that you guys are going through grief cycles. We know that you're going through anxiety, depression, all those things. Please understand, you are seen. You are not alone. Yeah. We're all in this boat together. It looks different for all of us, but we've all been through it. Your children need you to take care of yourselves. Your children need you to stay healthy. Your children need you to stay strong, and your children need you to keep fighting.
Now, let me address one thing in here. Belle talks about how her children were given immunization. It was against her religious belief. That would be cited specifically in your federal filing under your constitutional rights violations under your First Amendment. And you would cite that. Now, where you would find the evidence on the thing to back that up would be anything you see with speeches and everything else that's going on, or executive orders, or all those other things. The only place to get those, don't get them from the secondary source. Go to the Library of Congress's website. All of that stuff is on record. It's free to the public. There's no cost. You can look up anything from executive orders and so on forward. And you can enter that in so long as you have, and you can even put in there, executive order so-and-so was found that these particular things are here. My child was given this while in this and this and that is a violation of my constitutional rights. No consent was given. And then once again, that is after you to pursue what lawsuits you wish to do against those that gave it to you, against the manufacturers, and against the state and CPS systems. You can articulate those in your own personal case, as well as you can put that on. Like I said, if you guys don't know where the affidavits are, And this is one thing, you can go to Gunning for CPS, which is our news channel, look at the pinned post. It will give you the instructions, and we're adding to it as updated as we find out more information of some of the next steps. But the chat GPT that is specifically programmed to fill out a simple victim's affidavit form is in there. Make sure you save everything on your own personal computer, because it does not save anything from my understanding. When you open it, it will say squirrel, and there's a reason for that. But it'll fill out a form. You save all that stuff on there. We just need the form. The form needs to be properly notarized with a proper seal, a legal seal, and a current seal from a I'm drawing a blank here.
Are you going with notary?
Notary. That's right, notary. Late here.
They need to be notarized.
They need to be notarized, and the seal and everything needs to be current from when you sign it and everything.
That's a good
Yes,
point.
you can do them for your children. Look up online how to fill it out for your children. Yes, I encourage you to do one for your children. It's not too late to put those in. You still have plenty of time. Get those in. Follow the instructions. We do have, if you guys have looked through some of those other things, I think I'm going to update a few things too on my profile with a mailing address for those that need to mail them in. But we do prefer those to be emailed and in PDF format with the name of just real simple, the person's name, and just attach it as an attachment, because we download those, we save those, and then we can upload them digitally, unbeknownst to other groups giving false information and movements out there that your affidavits must be printed is not true. They can be all scanned in and done in a digital format. That is a lie that has been going around within another group to misinformation for other people. If that's not true, when you have an actual case, which those other people do not even have a case in those movements, you could even call the court clerk and ask them to give you access to actually upload documents and everything else. And they will go on their side within the PACER system, PACER system, and allow you to upload and or change or amend those documents and do everything digitally when you have your case accepted with a case number. So let's just get some of those misnomers and everything else out of the way. But guys, it's been, it does not, well, yes, if you pay for it, the chat GPT, you can, but you do not have to. Once again, if you save it, it's yours. You can talk to it several times, open a new chat GPT, give it new parameters and everything else. But the one that we have programmed is specifically for a victim's affidavit. Yes, once you get that victim's affidavit, let's clarify that, you will attach that, as well as when you get us a copy of that, we will send you out a letter stating that you are a federal witness in our case with our case number on there. You will enter that evidence as exhibits on your own personal case. You will do an exhibit schedule that will go in that. And like I said, they will format a lot of things. You got the book that we, how to do your own case there in the window. And guys, if you don't have this book, I highly recommend this one here. Is representing yourself in court, preparing to try and win a civil court case. And it's done by an attorney. This is out there. It's published by Nolo. There's several other publications we recommend. Like I said, Malibu Dallas Luenga has several publications. Darren, the CPS Punisher, I believe has done his first book. Is a great publication to get into. I exceptionally, look forward to, like I said, the book that Dallas did on the bond game and everything else has tons of information. You can get those bond information from Freedom of Information request. Some places will fight you on those things or buck up on you, but that's fine if you're in a federal courtroom when it comes getting past mediation and you get the power of federal subpoena. You then can take and hold them to it with a federal judge saying you will produce these documents, and if you say they don't exist, then you've got a problem, and those would end up going to your court clerk is where that subpoena is served. So these are some great resources, guys. We're here about educating you, working on getting the kids home. This is a process. We're learning and growing, educating as we go. I'm proud of you guys that are out there already steps ahead, filing your own federal case. getting ready to defend yourself and everything else and articulate those things. Understand too, when you go to a federal courtroom and you are doing things pro se sui juris, make sure that you have everybody repeat their oath on the record. Is highly recommended. Second off is pro se sui juris. So you can also acknowledge and put on the and not giving advice. And one thing that we're going to do, and I'm saying that is I'm not giving advice because these are things we're going to do, is make everybody repeat their oath. But also recognizing that the court does recognize that this is a constitutional court and that the Constitution is common law and that we are in a common law courtroom. Therefore, all of their bullshit and their legalese that they try to pull in there is not allowed in the federal courtroom. Just so you guys get that stuff out there, because that's how we're going to handle it. But you make sure you get the court to acknowledge it and put it on record. So if there's any disinformation or anything that to where you may need to appeal a certain section or anything else, that's fine. I would say once it gets to a certain point, a lot of you out there, please keep in mind when you do go to mediation, that's where you will settle out of court. It's the time that you can. That's 100% your choice. Whether or not you want to proceed, the lies that it will go on for years is not true. You will be given a certain set date, and your judge will hold to it. They will send you a letter as pro se sui juris about keeping that court date very, 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 very tightly, and not budging from that date a little bit at all. So a lot of that has to come with that. But guys, check us out again. Like I said, check out Beauty and Ashes next week, or not next week, but tomorrow. Sorry, I'm farting. Tomorrow at 9 p.m. Okay.
Yeah.
Tomorrow at 9 p.m.
Yeah, come join us. Come join Sam and I. We're gonna go through tomorrow night.
We'll get that squared away. You guys catch us again next week, same bat time, same bat channel. And yes, I know that is, I don't know if that's copyrighted, but we're going to borrow it and say thank you. And once again, please watch the Batman show if you want to, and we'll promote for that. Back to the old cartoons, or the back old Batman show with Adam West. But guys, catch us again next week, same channel, same time. We're going to pick up where we left off. We're going to start with the Fifth Amendment. And we're going to go down, and hopefully Sharon and everybody else, like I said, with what we've got going on, and we're going to pick up again with the Fifth Amendment. Hopefully Darren will be with us back again next week. We're going to pick up with the Fifth Amendment. We're going to go there, and hopefully Sharon go there, and we're going to take this step at a time of constitutional rights and how it takes and affects you, the psychological, the legal aspect. And don't forget, the show that promotes this here, that the Breaking News Network, www.breakingnews.com, is up and running now. So once again, it's still under construction. You're going to see the different show channels. You're going to see the Tiff and Punisher show. You're going to see Danielle's foster system. You're going to see Gunning for CPS. You're going to see Beauty and Ashes. You're going to see CPS Hunting for Justice, as well as several others. A lot of information is going to go on there. We're trying to gather this all together. Once again, we're a small team. We're doing the best we can. But once again, we appreciate your support. Get the word out there. And when you guys learn how to do this stuff, help each other out.
Correct.
Closing thoughts, babe?
CPSBreakingNews.com.
CPSBreakingNews.com. Let's put that in there. Okay, www.cpsbreakingnews.com. There it is. Hey, looks like Darren coming. Check us out on the web there and follow this going on here. A lot of information. Like I said, we are working all across the board and across the country. But once again, spread the word of what's going on. The reckoning is here. It's time to hold these people accountable, and have a great night. We'll see you next week.
Whispers tearing lives, hearts raw scarred. Judges grinning, deals in shadows locked. Caseworkers speaking truth they've mocked. Gunning on for justice, rage intense. Bringing kids home from this broken fence. Corruption weighs heavy, laws collapse. Kids go missing behind their maps. CPS stealing kids, no trace. Lies build walls, the truth they erase.